All right, folks, welcome to everybody around the world and warm welcome also to all my wonderful subscribers. So, this is my channel. I can do what I want. I today am going to make a quick little lineup with brief reasonings why for each one, what I like best about each one, basically, and why I think it's so great. But a top 10 list plus a few extra special mentions for a sci-fi anime series. So no OVAs, no films, movies, and all of that. It's got to be a series. Um, anyways, this is my top 10 list. I want to keep the video short. I don't have clips and all that fancy stuff to play, so I don't want to make it long and wound out. But number one, and some of these were hard to put into order, right? So I wouldn't say this is a super strict order, but the closest thing I could get to it for my own self. So I would say my number one favorite, the best sci-fi anime, and these are for older audiences. So like a PG-13 at minimum. Sometimes maybe like a rated R type rating, right? I don't like animes aimed for younger audiences, right? So all of these animes are at least PG-13 type level. Now some of them are at R level. So number one, I say goes to Gance. Gance was absolutely mind blowing. Um, the storyline and everything was absolutely mind blowing. It was so good. They made some films as well, which were good, but they kind of stray from the story. They lose out on some of the most, jaw dropping elements of the original anime. The films are still good, don't get me wrong, and they have great special effects. But focusing on the series here for my list, Gansis, the storyline, all of these have good animation. But Gance has really good animation, incredible story, it's full of suspense and thrills and twists and turns, and it's just absolutely amazing and captivating. Ironic, ironically, I bought the only manga I've ever bought in my life. I was like, well, Gance was so great and captivating. I just want to see what happens next. So I went and got the manga because they adapted the series from the manga. Um, I didn't really like the manga story. I mean, I still love it because it's Gantz and all that. But I think for the series, what they did was they localized certain chapters and focused on certain chapters from the manga storyline, um, which contained certain enemy characters, right? To make it more interesting, I think. Like one of the subsequent characters in the manga was a vampire, which I think just kind of like if the only thing you've watched was the series like me and then the movies, having a vampire introduced as like a main opponent character and having a whole story arc pertaining around vampires and then it kind of went off askew from what I personally like, but the series 10 out of 10, absolutely outstanding. Really, really good. I won't devote this much time to describing the rest of the ones on the list, but Gantz was spectacular. But it's, for, rated R type level, not for younger kids. It's violent, gruesome. It's not over the top gruesome or anything, but, it's like a rated R movie. So next in the list, number two, I've given to Space Dandy. And it's important that all of these animes that I watch, I do not watch any with English dub. English voice acting always terrible. When you watch the original Japanese voice acting, well, when you hear the original Japanese voice acting, they put so much effort and passion and emotion. It's like like they really are the characters going through those dramatic emotional scenes. They really do a good job. The English voice actors almost always consistently are just very lame in comparison. So if I can, I will always just watch the Japanese original audio and not English dub. So that's important, right? If you watch an English dub, like I have tried for some of these, like the Space Dandy English dub is terrible. It completely ruins a lot of the characters and robs them of a lot of their emotional elements that they had and that made them likable and unique and funny. Um, such as with Space Dandy and the other ones on this list too. The English, it's just it takes away from it. So if you're gonna watch any of these, watch them with the original Japanese audio. So, anyways, number two, like I said, Space Dandy. Now this is a comedy, whereas Gance is more like a thriller horror mystery. Mystery is the preliminary for Gantz. I didn't mention that, but the whole thing builds you up. You're trying to solve this amazing mystery, and it's at the same time as everything else going on. But anyway, Space Dandy is a comedy, and it's hard to rank comedies with action and horror and this and that there, but that's what I did for my list here. But Space Dandy is absolutely wonderful. It had 2 seasons. I think the second season they kind of went downhill in terms of storylines. It kind of seemed like they were appealing to maybe younger audiences or like certain niche audiences, and it just, but it's still Space Dandy, and I would still enjoy watching even some of the more boring of those second season episodes. Um, but the first season, especially, and some episodes in the second season, Space Dandy is a classic. It will go down across time as being just a classic in sci-fi comedy. The setting, the characters are just amazing, and again in the Japanese original voices. Just a really great show. Really recommend it. I put it as my number two. With my number three spot, hard to make this choice, but I've given it to the great anime epic of Toriko, which is a food genre anime. However, it is not just a cooking show, it is an action epic, right? And Toriko, it is great. I mean, again, Japanese only. I watched the English for this one here, really robs the characters of their character. But in the Japanese original, once again, Toriko is just a wonderful story. This one here would be PG-13 or under, but it's got enough action and seriousness, and that I don't think it has any blood necessarily or gore. So it's like PG-13 or hovering just under PG-13. Um, might even, I can't remember everything off the top of my head, but I don't think it really had any type of like brutal graphic violence. So it might even be okay for slightly younger kids. You know what I mean? Not little children, but Um, but despite it being the only one here in that audience type bracket, um, it's absolutely great. And I wouldn't even say that is the target audience. Toriko would appeal, and should appeal to all ages. It's not like it had a target audience of, teens or just before teens. No, Toriko is an excellent, stellar anime, great for even any adult to watch and thoroughly enjoy till the end. Long drawn out battles that cover over multiple episodes, leaving you with cliffhangers waiting at the end of each one, wondering what's going to happen next. I mean, sometimes you wonder if the battles are ever going to stop. Characters, he's growing in his power the more battles he goes through, and it's just fantastic because he starts off with these little mundane powers, and everything's cooking related. But I couldn't describe it right now in a short time, so I'm not even going to bother trying. But Toriko has comedy to it, action to it, and fantasy. So that's what Toriko embodies there. Those three subgenres of sci-fi, but just really, really great. The lessons and the storyline in terms of his friendship and companionship between Toriko, who's the main character, and his friend. I can't remember the kid's name anymore. He's like a young guy who likes cooking, and they go on this great adventure. And the creatures that they slay, they eat, and eating certain creatures will help unlock greater powers, and this and that there. And through their fighting and training to unlock certain powers, and it's just great. It just builds and builds, and he becomes so powerful towards the end. And the creatures that they face just get stronger and bigger and bigger, and it's just the Japanese version. The narrator at the start of each episode, the way he the song and everything, it's just so great. His enthusiasm, his emotion is so genuine as like in a comedic element that I really treasure and love that intro narrator and what he says and all of that there. It's just absolutely amazing. The English version sucks in comparison, robs it of that magical element. That Japanese narrator voice, it made me excited just to watch the intro of each episode, right? So, anyways, Toriko, really, really good. It's a long, long journey watching it all, but it's absolutely worth it. It's a treasure. So that's the top three. Next, in fourth place, Space Cobra. Now, there's a lot of different series. There were also some OVAs. All of it is absolutely excellent. It's a little confusing trying to plot or connect the storylines from the different series, and I think that's because they don't all follow one timeline. Um, some of them might be a bit chopped and changed. Go read up on it. It's a long story, but it didn't make a difference to me. Space Cobra is absolutely legendary. It's again, it's a treasure as well. It's older. I think it came out in, I think it was probably the 80s. It's got an older style to the animation, but really, really crisp and vivid and great as well. It doesn't lack in anything. Space Cobra is comedy and action, sci-fi action, right? So it doesn't have necessarily a fantasy element like Toriko did, but sci-fi action with comedy. You will fall in love, so to speak, with all of these characters so far. The characters from Gance, you will fall in love, so to speak, with those characters. They're so well developed and relayed. Same with Space Dandy. I love each one of the characters in Space Dandy. Absolutely epic. Toriko, same again. Really, really amazing, unforgettable, legendary characters. Space Cobra again. Cobra is just absolutely epic. He's funny. He's confident. People or younger people or anybody really watching it, he exudes such confidence. And yes, it is, a made up story and everything's conveniently working out for him. But that's part of the beauty of it. And also at times the comedy of it. You always have this reassurance inside of you that Cobra's always going to make it somehow. And not a lot of other animes or shows relay that with their main character, but that's part of, like I said, it's slightly meant to be a comedic an element, but not primarily. um, but he's just, and plus it's old school, right? Old school shows kind of had characters that were kind of like that. Less so nowadays, but Space Cobra, great. You'll fall in love with that character. And the whole series is great as well. So anyways, with fifth place. This was hard to pick, and I watched this one a few years ago. I can't remember it vividly, but all I remember is that Garen Langan, who I put in fifth place here, I remember I thoroughly enjoyed watching all of that. And by the end of it, I was sad that it was over. It was so epic. I can't remember how many seasons it is. It may just have been just one. I'm pretty sure it's not an OVA and that it's a series, but nonetheless, Gurren Langan is just absolutely fantastic. It's a sci-fi epic. That's its genre. Takes place on planets and in space, and it's got a mechanical theme to it. And similar with Toriko, how certain elements of the storyline build with each episode as they progress through all the episodes to a huge finish compared to the more meager start. You get that with Garen Langan in a different aspect to do with the machinery. The machinery starts off really small and fundamental, then gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and by the end of it, and that's a main element and theme to it, right? Almost like a tongue-in-cheek joke, like how big could the spaceships get or the machines get, and they just keep getting bigger, right? And it presenting them in a realistic fashion, right? Not like off the wall ridiculous, but they just keep getting bigger and more fantastic. And by the end of it, it's like holy moly, this was like one of the most creative space epics that you could ever come up with. Garen Langan was great. The characters were great. Um, I remember at the time, so to speak, fell in love with the characters. But to be honest, I can't remember much about them at the moment because it was a long time ago. But I do remember that they had certain character qualities that emanated from them that were positive and influential, and just great, captivating personalities as well. So those are my top five. Right now, next we get into the next five. So Cowboy Bebop, I put in sixth place. Now Cowboy Bebop, I think, had the potential, in my opinion, to be up there. Again, it would be hard to rank them, but I would have put Cowboy Bebop up higher, like around Space Dandy, Toriko, and all that, if the storylines of a lot of its episodes were different. I love the art and the feel and everything of Cowboy Bebop. The characters are great. They're not aboundingly special and all of that. One or two of the characters are in the special category. But you do fall in love with the characters. I really do like the dog and the dog's personality, because he's an intelligent dog, but he doesn't speak or anything. Um, and I think the name is Ed, that younger girl. Um, she has like a wacky, zany type personality. Almost comes across like she's on the spectrum. But I really love that character. Because when I was younger, it's not saying that I was like that, but that character appeals to me, like her personality and all of that. I like the dog. Um, and the other characters are fine, but they're not super amazing and all of that, but they go great with the story. Um, but the art style is what's really good. The creativity in the art style, is very artful. So Cowboy Bebop is great in terms of that. It's very artistic in its approach, very well thought out in terms of its artistic approach. Even with presenting camera angles and action sequences, it's artistically done. Almost, you could say, poetically done. So Cowboy Bebop is a great work of art. It really is a great work of art. Has great characters, not as great and special characters as the anime higher up on my list here, but still great all around. But I think it personally, a lot of the, like, you watch Cowboy Bebop thinking, oh, it's space based, it's in sci-fi space genre and all that, but very few of the episodes take place in space. They're almost always in a retro type vibe or setting on a planet like the Cowboys type era or like early 1930s type era. There's nothing wrong with that. But it happens to be in a lot of episodes. So that's just, I still enjoy watching them, but to me, I think it could have been so much more if they made it more along the lines of like Space Dandy. Um, but anyways, but nonetheless, Cowboy Bebop is great. So sixth place, seventh place. Some of these last bunch are hard to get into order in relation to each other, but I'm not going to fuss over it. This is the bottom five in the top 10. So we have Heroic Age. Heroic Age, if I'm not mistaken, was probably a PG-13 level. Cowboy Bebop is PG-13 level. Garen Langan, I'm pretty sure, is like PG-13 level. Space Cobra is between PG-13 and R, I would say. It has a little bit of like mild nudity, I think, but you don't really see anything important. Toriko, like I said, is a little bit younger audiences, as I better worded before. But anyways, just keeping on top of like the age bracket. So Heroic Age, probably PG, the age rating bracket. So Heroic Age, probably like a PG-13 type level. I can't remember if it had any like gore or strong violence or anything. I've also got to get going, so I got to wrap this up. But Heroic Age was a space epic, fantasy elements, in combined with being a space epic with technology and all of that. Just really great long storyline that develops into everything. Strong fantasy elements in the storyline. Really, really cool. Recommend watching it. It's been a long time since I watched that one, but I remember being captivated by it. It's not as overall spectacular as a lot of other animes. It's a little bit older. It's not as old as like Space Cobra, I'm pretty sure, but it deserves a place in the top 10. I think it was a great story, even considering that it's not really a mature audience anime. I still enjoyed it, which I think says a lot, like the other examples on my list. So finally, the last few. This would be eighth place. I've put Move Love Alternative. Um, this one and the next one, Infinite Stratos, and the next one, Sidonia no Kishi, or Knights of Sidonia. These last three of the top 10, I watched 5+ years ago. There's not much I can remember. All I know is that I did thoroughly enjoy them. Um, each of them are all basically in the same category of a space epic, highly technological. Um, fighting against various different creatures or other races of people or whatever, right? And they're all great. Some of them are a little bit better in areas than others. One of them had a great like romance in it, and I'm not somebody who looks for a romance in a film. Most guys don't, but this one here was so well thought out that it was just really great. So I can't remember offhand which one it was, Love or Infinite Stratos or Sidonia no Kishi. But I mean, they all generally have romantic relationships in the movies, little romances that develop. But one in particular, I just can't remember which one it was. Um, the romance was a primary element of the overall storyline, like these two characters falling in love. Um, but that didn't detract away from all the supreme action that was taking place. But these three are great. It's hard to rank them in relation to each other. But Love, Alternative, Infinite Stratos, Sidonia, no Kishi. A lot where all of these involve spaceships and mechs, usually flying mechs. But the weapons and the art is so amazing. The way they portray the spaceships and the technology and the fields is really, really good. Really, really like them. But anyways, Terraform Mars would be 11th place, and Terraform Mars was great. It's a little cheesy, a little bit childish. It's like they combined a younger audience element in how each one has certain bug superpowers, and they combine that with the mature gore that's in there. So it's a little bit cheesy in certain ways, but Terraform Mars was great, and I think they did make 2 seasons. It's worth a watch. It's good. It gets a little repetitive because they're all just going up against these cockroach humanoids, but nonetheless, it's definitely worth a watch, and it deserves a place up here on this list, but just outside the top 10. If they had taken out those cheesy elements, still left the giant cockroaches in there, it could have been better. It just seemed a little bit childish with how each one had certain different bug powers. It's like those old children's cartoons you used to see back in the 80s, almost like Captain Planet. But anyways, moving on, special mentions that were great. I enjoyed watching them. Terraform Mars is a sci-fi thriller horror. Um, Love, Infinite Stratos, Sidonia, and Kishi are, I think I said, in space epic action. So anyway, special mentions. We have Kaiju number 8, which I saw recently within the last year. Uh, really good, really enjoyed it, and really upset that it ended the way that it did. It seemed like there were more episodes or another season coming, and nothing's happened, and it irritates me because it just leaves you with a cliffhanger, and you're like, what the heck? But Kaiju number 8, really, really good. It's a sci-fi. I don't know if you could call it horror, but sci-fi with like alien monsters, um, thriller type action backslash horror. Um, Unit of like people who are appointed to try and defeat these monsters and this and that there, right? Really good. I think it's probably around PG-13 level, maybe towards R. I can't remember exactly all the details, but it's good. It's enjoyable. Next, I wouldn't say it's one of the top 10 best of all time, but it was really, really good. There wasn't much I could really complain about it. Just really, really good. Not worth complaining about it. Next was anime called Level E. I saw this many years ago. It's comedy. It's great. It was fun to watch. I would watch it again. But it's a little bit more of a slower paced, almost becomes like a sitcom, almost is like a sitcom. It's not like you're watching a sci-fi action movie, but it's got sci-fi space elements. It's about a alien guy who comes down to Earth, basically. So when he's on Earth, it's more like an earthly sitcom. But it's a great movie. I can't remember everything about it's not a movie, sorry, series. Can't remember everything about it. It's been many years since I watched it, probably at least 5 years. But it was great. Had likable characters, memorable characters, um, just not as stand out ish as all these other in my top 10. Next, we have Attack on Titan. Now, Attack on Titan, um, if they had just made the first season and wrapped it up in the first season, all the storyline, it would have been much better. Or if they just left it with the first season and adapted the storyline, it would have been epic. Um, Many long, slow, boring points in episodes, undeniably, but the action, the suspense, trying to solve the mystery of everything, and the whole thing with the giants invading, it's so terrifying. Absolutely, absolutely epic. And I would have put it up in my top 10. However, the only reason I didn't is because it's tedious and irritating to watch in between the great, incredible action and mystery scenes. They're just long, boring scenes of like dialogue and interaction that's just like it's like it was paving the way for like a 20-hour long episode, and just going on forever. I think if you added up all the episodes, it might even be more than 20 hours. So but it goes at a snail's pace many times, and it's just very boring. um, but really is epic, and it deserves a mention at least. The later seasons, I mean, don't get me wrong, they still have great content. I haven't gone through and watched all the episodes of the later seasons because I started to watch season two, and it was a huge letdown for me in many ways. But nonetheless, just taking the series, I'm not comparing things for Attack on Titan to anime or to manga. Sorry, I've never read the manga. It may not even be a manga. I don't know. But this is a list for series, anime series, and the first season was epic. I would recommend just watch the first season and don't watch the second season. Um, I can't remember if you do learn important connected things in the first episodes of the second season, maybe, in which case you should watch some of them. But long story short, the first season is where the gold is in terms of content. But it is epic and it deserves a mention. And finally, I want to throw this one out there because I'm probably not going to make a video on OVAs because I have watched a lot of the available OVAs in sci-fi genre. I like more space themed than fantasy, but nonetheless, that's what I lean towards. But Godzilla was great, but I believe it wasn't series. It was they made a few newer ones, and I'm just not sure if one of them was a series or not. So I wasn't certain. Couldn't be bothered to go looking it all up again because some of them are in just because I only watched the Japanese audio versions. You have to look them up by their Japanese titles because if you don't speak Japanese, it's hard to remember those words. You know what I mean? Unless they're emblazoned in your mind. So I don't know if I could track down all the different more recent Godzilla animes and see if any were a series. So, but I wanted to mention Godzilla here because I think it was interesting, but a failure at the same time because they strayed from the Godzilla original storyline so much. The creature, everything is just absolutely different. Um, this is my opinion. I've heard some people explain, oh, it's because it's in the future or the past or whatever, and all this time has gone by, and this is how Godzilla adapted. But anyways, maybe I missed that part in the series, but I watched a bunch of them, and it just seems, generally speaking, they strayed so far, like they're trying to modernize Godzilla or make it new and different and interesting. But it's still good and worth watching. Some of these newer Godzilla animes are very slow paced. One of them had great CGI and had so much potential, but it was just so long, boring, and drawn out, and like narrowed down that it just felt like they had so much art potential for this, but they didn't, like CGI art potential that they could have done so much with, but they just kept on this very narrowed, focused down storyline, very slow, long, and drawn out. And the storyline was so different, like the creature and everything from the Godzilla we know and grew up with, that for me, I didn't really like it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the ending of that one particular one, the most recent one, was terrible and just really irritated me. But anyways, I think they're worth watching though. I wouldn't blame you if you turn it off and get tired of it. But it's definitely pretty cool when the mega huge Godzilla emerges in whichever one of these it is. Um, because it's ridiculously powerful. In fact, they made Godzilla so overly powerful that he's virtually invincible. And I think that may have been what the huge letdown was at the end of the one I last watched, because he's basically just invincible. And I think there might even be more than one of them, anyways. So I gotta get going. I'm super late, but that's my list. I've always wanted to do one. So if you're gonna go watch any of these, I would say go check out the ones in my top five. Even Cowboy Bebop, if you feel like it. Those are the best ones to go start off with. But anyways, take care, folks, and see you all later.